to the Tony Chipman SD show. SD for shit disturber. And tonight, my friend, we are going to be shit disturbing. If you are offended by foul language, oh, I love you because you're going to have a wonderful evening listening to lots of foul language this evening. But when I had a group of when I quit drinking and I was surrounded by teenagers, among the things I taught them was before you start a negative conversation, always start it with a positive. So I'd like to start it with a positive about a story that was on the news about a couple of seniors. The wife was suffering from dementia, and the husband went out and pawned his wedding ring of 50 years to buy food for them. And the police department in this small Canadian town heard about this, took up a collection, and went and purchased the ring back for the senior and also bought a whole bunch of food for them to supply them with food. And that is the kind of police officer that I knew before coming to Toronto. Officers that I respected, I loved, I was honored just to be among them. And now, after 30 years in Toronto, I look at police officers and they turn my stomach. I get sick looking at them. They're nothing but low-life, yellow-bellied, gutless, cowardly scumbags that are out there to ruin people's lives as they ruined mine. And I am about to tell you how they did that. But first, let me remind you that I am a veteran. I'm a soldier. I've been a soldier since I was 5 years old when I told my mom. I dreamed last night that I was fighting in a battle for our rights and freedoms, and I died on the battlefield. And that's where I'd like to die, on the battlefield. And it might just happen that way with the police not thinking anything of shooting people to death. I might be their next victim. So I really don't care. At my age, I'm going anyway one of these days, so fuck it. So tonight, I want to tell you that when I came to Toronto, I did what I did whenever I went to a new city because I treasured our rights and freedoms, because I was willing to die for them as a soldier, because all of our soldiers, because we have thousands of soldiers buried, and they all died making sure that we had our rights and freedoms protected. And then what we did was, as soldiers, we turned that duty over to these scumbags called police officers to protect those rights and freedoms. And when I came to Toronto, I saw nothing but violations day by day in the news, in the newspapers, on television, on radio, and mostly from people that I met and spoke to that told me that what they thought of police was just exactly what I described. Those are the words that were most used to describe police to me. Low-life, yellow-bellied, gutless, cowardly scumbags. I have since found that a lot worse names could be called to them. And I'm going to take you back. What I decided to do, I'd come here to pursue an acting career. I'm an award-winning actor. And things were going very well. And I quit drinking after 40 years. And the first thing you find out when you quit drinking is that you don't have any friends, because all your friends were drunks like you, and drunks don't like to be seen around sober people because sober people see what assholes they are. So what I had surrounded me then was a group of teenagers. Now this is very important that you understand this. These teenagers came to me. I taught them the art of conversation. Some of them came to learn to play guitar. Some came to learn to sing. Some came to learn to act, but they all came to learn to be good citizens. And that's what I taught them. And they walked away. You saw John Bishop on one of my shows. He is now the owner of his own company. And he said he never believed it would happen. And when we talked, he kept quoting me. And the things that I told him when he was 14 and 15, he was quoting back to me. And basically telling me that all of his success was from the direction that he received from me. And it made me very, very proud. But it pissed off the police because the police don't want anybody out there helping children to grow up to be good citizens. Because as I saw when I went to court, the courthouse was full, wall to wall, with young people in their teens and 20s. And I thought, this is not a legal system. This is a legal industry. They are out here making criminals, and they're making these young people criminals and destroying their lives. And I thought, this cannot happen. When I checked with them, most of it was drug offenses. And I quit drinking because I found out that I could get the same enjoyment from smoking a joint, and I didn't get sick. I didn't want to beat anybody up. I didn't want to put my fist through the wall. I didn't want to hurt anybody or do anything stupid. So I managed to quit drinking after all those years. And these young people gathered around me for advice. And one of them, well, John Bishop was responsible for a number of wonderful things happening. The one was, he brought this young man over to my home. And when I first met the young man, I went to shake his hand, and he curled up in a fetal position, and I knew what that was. He was a young man that was being physically abused at home, as I was. Okay, so I took him under my wing, taught him to play guitar. He became a wonderful guitar player, a wonderful singer, but he ended up in jail, in prison. I will tell you more about that later. But first, let's go back to the beginning of the journey. After witnessing all this crap in court, I decided that to do something that now I realize was very stupid. I decided to get myself arrested to find out the truth about the system, because you can't believe everything. I grew up believing in the old saying, don't believe anything you hear and only half of what you see. Okay? So I didn't believe any of these stories that I was hearing about the legal system. So I wanted to get involved in it and find out on my own. So I went out and I had myself arrested for dealing drugs. And I can still remember that night I put the word out. Anybody looking for a large amount of drugs, bring them to me, because it may be a cop. And I want to make sure that I get caught. So when I got caught, I remember that night so well. I was sitting in my living room of my little apartment. I hear bang, bang, cops, and then smash, and the door was open, and the next thing I know, there's some idiot standing in front of me with a pistol about that far from my head. And I'm watching these guys go around my home, ripping and tearing and throwing and tossing everything around. And I watch this one out of my eye. I'm looking at this one cop walk by my coffee table, and there was a wonderful pair of sunglasses that had been given to me as a gift. And I watched this scumbag reach down, pick up my sunglasses, and put them in his pocket. Well, I was about to say something, and then I looked at that pistol aimed at me, and knowing what scumbags there were in the Toronto Police Force, I decided I'd keep my mouth shut or I'd get a bullet in my head. But then later on, after this, I received a paper from the legal system telling me that they had taken $1,100 of drug money from me, and I was going through a bankruptcy at the time, so I had $1,800 in a drawer, and they said that they claimed that they found $1,100 in drug money. So I went to my lawyer, wonderful Danny Kafetz, and said, Danny, I had $1,800 in there. They stole $700. And his words were, now this is the wisdom of our legal system. He said, Tony, it's your word against theirs. So that's how our legal system works. If the police say you did something, mister, you're guilty, no matter what they say. These scumbags can accuse you of anything, and you're guilty. That is what I found from my lawyer when he told me, it's your word against theirs, and who do you think they're going to believe? Well, you know who they're going to believe. They're going to believe these scumbags. So I said, okay, now I'm in. I went. I actually enjoyed the weekends in jail. My first day in the jail, at my first weekend in jail, I remember I finished lunch the first day, and one of the guards said, "Okay, volunteers to clean up," and I jumped up and I ran over and said, "I volunteer," and he said, "Okay, start cleaning those tables over there." So I cleaned the tables and I rushed back and said, "What next, Steph?" And I drove him crazy that day with running up. He'd tell me to do something. I'd do it right away, perfectly. And then I'd run up and say, "All done, staff. What next?" And from then on, when they came looking for volunteers or looking for somebody to do a job, I can remember I'd be laying on my bunk and somebody said, "There's a guy there." "Oh, no, that's Tony Chipman. Don't bother him." So they never ever bothered me again in jail to do any work. So that was one of the funny things that happened. But while it wasn't long after that that my young friend that was being abused at home arrives and tells me he can't come to my home anymore because a judge decided that he was up on some charges, break and enter or something, and the judge declared that he was not allowed to enter my home. So I went to my member of Queen's Park, at the time David Revel, the last politician that I could trust, and David filed a complaint against the judge, and the judge's answer was, "If Chipman doesn't like what I said, then tell him to come and see me." So that was the type of, and his name was John Hamilton, the judge. I understand he was killed in a car accident, and I hope the bastard burns in hell. So anyway, he forbid this young man from attending my home. That was the first complaint. And shortly after that, I found that the police were parking their cars out in front of my laundromat that I managed. And I went out one night and I said, "Why are people parking in front of my laundromat?" "Oh," he said, "this is a speed trap." I said, "On Jones Avenue, a speed trap?" Yeah. So it was all bullshit. So and then they started stopping people leaving my laundromat, friends of mine, and asking them, "What's going on up there?" Because, if young people, anywhere that young people gather, the fucking cops think there's got to be something going on there. We've got to investigate. So they thought there was something going on when there was something going on. I was making sure that our young people grew up to be good citizens and not to be harassed by police. But here they were harassing them. So I filed a complaint against the police for harassing people leaving my home. And the next thing I received, and when I went down to 55 Division to file the complaint, the sergeant said, "Are you sure you want to file this complaint, Mr. Chipman?" I said, "Yes." I said, "The reason is that as long as the police are out harassing innocent citizens in this city, they are going to lose the help and contact that they need. They need the citizens as much as the citizens need them. But if they're going to harass and disturb the citizens, they're going to lose that help." So when I got home, I was home about 15 minutes and the phone rang. It was the sergeant, again asking me if I was sure I wanted to file the complaint. Again, I explained to him, yes, I did, and why. And then I hung up, and 5 minutes later, the phone rang. I answered it, and I heard, "Drop the complaint, Chipman." Bang. Hang up. 5 minutes later, another phone call. "Drop the fucking complaint, Chipman, or else." Well, I don't take threats seriously, especially not from a bunch of low-life, yellow-bellied, gutless, cowardly scumbags. They don't scare the hell out of me at all. So that little episode was never, I received the answer back, "Oh, well, we have to do this and we have to do that, and to protect the public, we have to question people that we think are suspicious, blah, blah, blah." The usual bullshit that government hands you. My next complaint, my apartment was broken into. And I was working at the time, so I knew nothing about it. I got home. 3 people stopped me on the way home and said, "Your place was broken into." I get there, my door's been smashed open, and I and then I received a call, and it was a young man who called from a group home not far from my home, and said, "Hey Tony, we're the four we're four guys that broke into your home. We're over here in the group home." And I didn't think of it then, but I realized later on that they were pushed by the police to break into my home. And when I filed a complaint again, when I called the police and told them, or filed a complaint against them, they went around and tried to get more evidence against me. And the kids called me again and said, "You know what they're doing? They're going around, they're saying, if anybody can give a shit on Chipman to get him in trouble, we'll drop all the charges against you," which they do all the time to people. So these guys really liked me because I was loved in the neighborhood. And I have letters to prove that, young people that wrote and said they love me. And so these guys, they may have been in a group home and they may have been accused of crimes, but they were good people, unlike the cops that were trying to get them to put me behind bars. So we went on. That was the second complaint about them going around and trying to find something dirty on me. The third complaint I filed against them, I was trying to get custody. This is hard for me to talk about because I had three loves in my country, or my life, my mom, my grandmother, and my country. And my mom and grandmother are gone, and my country might as well be gone. And my fourth love came along, my son Stephen, who I haven't seen in 30 years. I haven't seen him since he was 3 years old because some dirty, low-down fucking scumbag of a fucking cop went to the Children's Aid Society and told the Children's Aid Society that I was a menace to the children in the neighborhood. So that immediately stopped any chance of me gaining custody of my son Stephen. So I had to walk away from that. And he was my fourth love in my life. And I miss him so much, and he doesn't want to contact me now. He thinks I was at fault, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I've got to take a break now because my throat's leaving me. But I'll tell you what I did tonight. Last time I brought in an air check of me on the air, and commercials are fucking boring, aren't they? Yes, they are. So I thought tonight I'll just bring in, these are some songs that I sort of liked, and I recorded them, and I thought you might listen to them tonight while I clear my throat and take a break, okay? We'll be back in about 5. Come on. But each time I go out with someone new, you walk by and I fall to pieces. You walk by and I fall to pieces. Oh boy, I fall to pieces. Well, I'll tell you what, I fell to pieces when I came to Toronto. You know, it was so disturbing to go from this amazing, I lived this amazing life prior to Toronto. Broadcast from, and here's the thing, at 18, 4 months after my 18th birthday, I was on a ship headed to Europe during the Cold War and prepared to give my life up for this fucking country. And along with so many other young people and young men and women that have, and many of them now are buried over in Europe and around the world. And what the Toronto Police Force is doing by ruining our rights and freedoms is they are pissing and shitting over the graves of all of the brave men who gave their lives to protect our rights and freedoms. And for them to do what they did to me was a direct violation of any of the rights and freedoms that our soldiers fought and died to preserve. And yet these cowardly scumbags think nothing of falsely accusing people of a crime. The first one, they planted evidence. They sent a pedophile who was up on 16 charges, I believe it was 16 charges of pedophilia. They dropped half of them if he would plant $20 worth of marijuana in my apartment, which he did. He phoned me and said, "Can I come over?" And I said, "No, I don't want you near my home. I despise you." And he said, "Well, he used to live in the apartment that I was in." He said, "I want my carpet back." I said, "Come over and get your carpet and fuck off." He came over, he walked in, he said, "Can I look around?" I said, "Go ahead, look around." He looked around, he said, "Okay, keep the carpet," and he was gone. The next day, crash, bang, and the police are knocking in my door, and lo and behold, they went to a closet that I never used. It was sort of a winter closet, and came back with this $20 worth of weed and charged me with, I forget what it was. They put a bunch of charges on me anyway. If I had claimed guilty to one of them, they would have, they would have dropped. What I did was I pled guilty because I couldn't stand going back and forth into court for another year, in to report, okay, come back again, and then reporting to the cops every week. So I said, I will plead guilty to this charge so I can get it over quickly. So the judge that I went before, I found out afterwards, was on the verge of a mental breakdown. This guy was partially nuts. And for $20 worth of marijuana, he charged me a $1,000 fine or 6 months in jail. Now, I appealed it on my own. I'm a dummy from Nova Scotia with half a grade 9 education, and I appealed it on my own. Now, anybody that's had involvement with the courts knows that to get an appeal lawyer, it costs you extra money because you got to be really smart to be an appeals lawyer. But for me, with a grade 9 education, half a grade 9 education, I went into the Court of Appeals, and I had a wonderful incident. When I stood up to say my piece, I said, "Your Honor," and I had a book like this, and I said, "Your Honor, down here are a list of the people that I've called," and I started listing them, and their phone numbers. And no matter where I called, I could not find anywhere where there was a precedent for what you should have to pay for possession of $20 worth of weed. So I was left, Your Honor, with nothing but logic and common sense to guide me. And I was warned by members of the legal community that I would be a fool to use logic and common sense in the Court of Appeals. And the judge said, "That's not true, Mr. Chipman." I said, "I certainly hope it's not, sir, because that's all I have to offer. And I think a $1,000 fine or 6 months in jail for $20 worth of marijuana is not logical and does not make sense." And he said, "You're right, Mr. Chipman, I agree. This, as a matter of fact," he said, "this case should never have even gone to court." Okay? Now, the second charge, a dear friend of mine brought this young man over to my home and said he's on probation for breaking and entering, and he's living with his sister, and his sister wants him gone for the weekend. Could he crash out at your place for the weekend? I said, "Sure, okay." So it turned out to be not one weekend, but every weekend for about a month. And finally I said, "Okay." And I put him to work shoveling snow or whatever. And he got pissed off because he had to work. And I didn't see him for about a month. And the next time I see him, I'd been to a Shirley show. Now, this was a show that used to be on television. And it was Shirley, I can't remember her last name, and, typical talk show. And this particular program was about the Children's Aid Society. So I went to this, they invited me, because of my problems with the Children's Aid, to attend this special airing of the Shirley show. And this bitch from the Children's Aid Society stood up there and made a false claim that they always try to find a home with family or dear friends for the baby. And that is an absolute lie. And I stood up and I said, "How dare you stand there in front of the national television and lie like that?" So it was after that, when I got home, shortly after I arrived home, this young man that I had not seen for a month arrives at my home and said, "Do you mind if I stay the night?" I said, "Okay." So about 3 o'clock in the morning, he gets up. I hear my door closing. I get up to look and see he's gone, and the door's half open. So I checked around, nothing stolen. 7 o'clock in the morning, knock on the door. I opened, the police are there, with this guy claiming that I had sexually abused him. And I said, "What?" So anyway, they took a DNA sample from me, and it came back that there was none of my DNA there. And so I thought, well, that's it. They're going to drop the charges. But no, they went ahead with the charges. And when we got to court, I'll never forget that short little fat ugly bitch of a Crown prosecutor. God, she was ugly. And as I looked at her, she said, "Do you know?" She asked the stupidest question. She said, "Do you know why you're here, Mr. Chipman?" I said, "No, I don't." I said, "But as I look at you, I can see by the looks of you that you wouldn't know much about what is going on here today, because it's about sex. And I don't think that you have much experience with sex with your looks." But I said, DNA is proof positive. Now, I said, DNA is procured by a small little padding that you could stick in your ear or whatever. And that way they can get your DNA. They stick it in your mouth and they wipe it around your mouth, and that gives them your DNA. Now, I think, although I don't know for sure, but I think if I was guilty, that the swab that you would be checking would be a lot larger than the swab you normally use for checking DNA. And since there was none of my DNA on it, I didn't think I should be charged. And the judge said at the end of the court, he said, "This case is dismissed despite the efforts of the Toronto police to make Mr. Chipman appear guilty. There was absolutely no evidence to back it up." Okay? That was case number 2. The third case came up. I had just moved. I moved into the seniors' residence on Merrill Avenue. And I got friendly with a family lived across the street. When I saw the father and son out each night playing baseball, it sort of took me back to the 50s, and I really liked it. So I got to meet them, and very shortly found out that they were liars and thieves, and I tried to get them away from me, and they wouldn't go. And then this young man comes to me who tries to sell me weed, and I didn't want to buy anything from him for fear that his parents would blame me for getting involved in weed. So I told him no, and I said, don't come around here anymore with your weed. And away he went, and the next thing I know, I'm charged with, now here's the charge. I was charged with tapping him on his ass, offering him oral sex, and touching his crotch. Now, none of those happened, but how do you prove it? How can you prove it? And the only evidence in that court to prove that they were lying was the fact that his mother had sent him over to my home with a porno flick and said, I found this in his room. Is it yours? And when he brought it over, I looked on it. I said, put it in, let me check it out. No, that's not one of mine. And he said, well, can I take it back? I said, no. I said, I'm not going to let you take it back. I said, your mother sent you over with that just so that I would send you back with the porno flick so she could say that I gave you a porno flick. No, you're not getting it. So I wouldn't let him have the porno flick back. But we went to court, and the judge happened to be the same judge, the asshole, John Hamilton, who originally wouldn't allow that young man to visit me. And I filed a complaint against him, and now here he is judging me, sitting in judgment over me, when if he had any honor whatsoever, which he didn't, he was a scumbag, he would have recused himself from the case because of the claim that the claim that I'd filed against him, and he should have recused himself, but he didn't. And when it came time to present the evidence of the mother sending the movie over, three times my lawyer tried to bring it up, and this asshole judge said, oh, no, that lovely lady, she was a big, fat, ugly pig of a slob who was barred from her children's baseball because of her foul language. Then he's saying this beautiful lady wouldn't send that porno flick over? No way. 3 times he did that. 3 times he refused to allow evidence to prove that this bitch and her stupid son were liars. So I am now on the sex offenders registry for the rest of my life for something I didn't do. And I will tell you that I'm innocent of that crime, and I'm still on the sex offenders registry, and as of now, I will make this clear. The next time they ask me to report, I'm going to tell them to go fuck themselves. If they want to come and get me, they'll have to come and get me, and I will strip my clothes off, and they will have to take me out of my apartment naked before they can get me out, because I am not going to go easy. All right? And hopefully, maybe somewhere, someone will listen and hear this and want to do something about it, although I doubt it, because the amount of people watching the show is overwhelming. I mean, there's a total of, I think, 15 people that have watched it. So, and I was saying to my producer today, Hugh, that I don't think I'll be able to do many more of these programs, since nobody seems to care, nobody seems to be listening. And, oh man, my throat is going. We were talking about maybe looking forward to the future instead of me sitting here and trying to yak and tear my throat apart, we'll be able to play some music and do a little DJ on air and talk about fun things instead of talking about scumbags like I'm talking about now. You know what? I'm going to take another break because it's getting really difficult. When I come back, I want to take you back through my journey with Toronto Community Housing. But I do have some more music. Now, this is me singing, so enjoy. And we'll be back after this, okay? I wouldn't change a single thing about you if I could. The way you are just suits me to a T. A princess in a storybook, a king upon his throne. That's what we are, and you belong to me. I wouldn't change you if I could. I love you as you are. You're all that I would wish for if I wished upon a star. An angel sent from heaven. You're everything that's good. You're perfect just the way you are. I wouldn't change you if I could. Tender smile, I'd leave them as they are. And come what may, I'd never change a thing. And if I were a potter and you a piece of clay, the only thing I'd change would be your name. I wouldn't change you if I could. I love you as you are. You're all that I would wish for if I wished upon a star. An angel sent from heaven. You're everything that's good. You're perfect just the way you are. I wouldn't change you if I could. You're perfect just the way you are. I wouldn't change you if I could. All right, here we are back. This is the final segment of the show tonight. I hope you enjoyed that. That's a little bit of my hidden talent. Yeah, I used to love singing. Now I don't sing at all. I don't listen to comedy. I'm so full of hate since moving to the city that I can't enjoy anything anymore. And, I've given you a pretty good example of what the police have done to destroy my life. Now let's get to the other one, the Toronto Community Housing, and what they have done. They have completely destroyed my health and welfare. Oh my, did I bring that in? Yes, I did. I have a list here. I'm just in the midst of trying to get something done, but I'll explain it to you. What happened was, back in May of last year, the last week of May, I was suffering, the last couple of weeks, I was suffering from the I've fallen and I can't get up syndrome, and it was happening to me, and it was very frightening. And the fourth time it happened, I was lying in bed, and fortunately, one of the ladies in the building came by and knocked on my door, and I went to get up and I couldn't move, and I said, "Help! Oh, oh!" And so she called an ambulance, and they rushed me to East General, where I spent a week in the hospital. While I was there, I understood that they were spraying for bed bugs, Now, the thing with the bed bugs in Toronto community housing is really disgusting because they've been there for 10 years now. Every year for the past 10 years, they've had to come in and spray my apartment for bed bugs. And I'd never seen a bed bug before in my life. Never. But while I was in the hospital, I contacted the lady that had helped me get into the hospital, and she said, well, they are spraying next week. She said, I will see if I can get them to spray before you get out of the hospital. And then she came back and she said, no, they won't change the spraying till you get back. And I said, well, and I'd left her some money, $250. I said, find another sprayer and get my apartment sprayed before I get out of hospital. Okay. And the next thing I heard, she gets back to me with, I got another one to spray the apartment. And then Toronto Community Housing also decided that they would spray it. So you had two people come in and spray your apartment for bed bugs. So I felt pretty sure that when I got home, I would be bed bug free. I got out of the hospital, I went home, I laid down in the bed, woke up about an hour later, and you couldn't see the pillow for bed bugs. I'd never seen so many bed bugs in my life. It was like somebody planted them there. So that was the beginning. Now that was the beginning. That was the 1st of June. And of course, things went on, and I found out why we were constantly bugged by bed bugs was because the Toronto Community Housing gave us instructions on what to do, how to prep our apartments for the spraying. But what I found out was from one of the sprayers that the information they were giving us was only half of what we had to do. Now, they expected senior citizens to prepare their apartments for bug spray. When it came to me, and I had my MPP at the time, well, I don't want to get into that right now, but he was helping me with this little problem with the housing. And, you know, as I was looking at these bed bugs, it was driving me crazy. So I decided that we had to do something about this, and we had to get somebody involved. And consequently, the next time, here's what they were doing. They were giving us instructions that only half did the job. So when I complained about that, they brought in a team of 4 Filipinos, 2 girls, 2 guys, to prep my apartment. And my MPP, by the way, Arthur Potts, has all the information on who they sent over and what was stolen. I'm going to give you some of the things that were stolen. About 300 cassette tapes detailing my career in broadcasting. All my legal documents, court documents and legal documents, books and magazines from the 60s. And at the same time, some albums that were signed by the artists were taken. 4 VCRs that I had in a closet taken. They took my iron. I can't iron my clothes anymore. A stool that I used to get to high places. They took some pots and pans and dishes. They took my autographed albums, I mentioned that. Some of them were James Leroy and Farron Young had signed them. A box of 50 DVDs. They stole that. My recycle bag, they took that. My acting award. Why would they take that? They took my acting award. And my T-shirt with advertising Tony Chipman on it. Important information from my desk drawer of my life, and my family, deaths, births, all the important things about my family, all taken, thrown out. And I had a huge photograph on my wall, like that, taken at CJOB in Winnipeg in the 60s that I'd hung on my wall since the 60s, and that was taken and thrown out as well. Now, Toronto Community Housing, of course, denies anything. My MPP said, well, first of all, he came to me when I got out of the hospital, and then the second time I went in the hospital was in September. Now, this was the 4th of September. I went in the hospital to have a half a kidney removed from cancer. I went in on Friday. I was out on Monday, walked out on my own, and I want to tell you that having a tooth pulled was more painful than that operation. It was an amazing operation. I was lying on the table and talking to the anesthesiast, and all of a sudden I wake up and I'm in my hospital room, just like that. And I never felt anything. There was a bit of a pain. They had stapled me back up together again, and there was a bit of a pain, but nothing serious. I had painkillers, and it was an amazing. I was so excited about having this operation, and then it turned out to be an amazing operation that, unbelievable. You hear all this talk about cancer and fear and everything, and here I went in. 2 days later, I'm walking out the door with a smile on my face. So that was one of the good things that came out of all of this. But when I got out of the hospital, the second time now, the first time was in June, now we're in September. I went in on the 4th of September. I come out on the Monday, home to lie down on my bed, and lo and behold, I wake up again. Bedbugs covering my pillow again. It's like somebody planted them there. I'd never seen that many bedbugs before. And big ones. So I don't know who was putting them there, but it wasn't me. And it really upset me because I was supposed to be rehabilitating after my operation. It was a pretty serious operation, and I was supposed to do a little rehab and rest and rehabilitation. But how could you rest in an apartment full of these bedbugs? So I got on the phone, as I will do, and calling. Finally, I called my new MPP for the Beaches, East York, Mr. Arthur Potts, and he was absolutely marvelous. This guy was, the first day he called me 8 times, ensuring that I was okay. Yes. You're okay, Tony? We're going to do this. I called this one. I'd never had a politician in my life that was so helpful and kind. I fell in love with this guy. He was like my hero. And him and his right-hand man, David, they seemed really genuinely concerned with my future and with the future of other seniors living in Toronto Community Housing. I mean, genuinely concerned. I mean, I thought that they were serious. So this was before Christmas. So I was kind enough to leave them alone. I didn't bother either one of them over Christmas to let them have their holidays. But when the holidays were over, and I received a call from my MPP, Mr. Potts, and I can remember the phone call. I said, hello. He said, hi, Tony, and Happy New Year. I said, oh, thank you, Arthur. Happy New Year to you. How are things going? He said, fine. I said, so what's happening with my case? Oh, nothing we can do about it, Tony. Your stuff is gone. We don't even know what was taken. There's nothing we can do about it. And I had given them the names of the people, the Filipinos, who ripped me off. I'd given them the name of the superintendent of the building that allowed this to happen. I'd given them the name of a number of other people at Toronto Community Housing involved in this. And yet this MPP says, nothing we can do about it, Tony. Basically saying, you're fucked, tough fucking titty. It just, and this is a guy that I really loved and respected. I thought he was an amazing man. And he just kicked me in the nuts and told me to basically fuck off and leave them alone. And it disturbed me to no end. And that's why I was considering when I came in here tonight that this would be my last show, because I thought, why should I waste the last few years of my life trying to change a country full of assholes that don't want to change? And I am so disgusted. I used to love this country, as people will tell you that knew me before I came to Toronto. I loved the three loves: my mother, my grandmother, and my country were my three loves. And now mother and grandmother are gone, and I hate this fucking country now because of the way I was treated in Toronto by the scumbag police force and by the low-life politicians who really don't give a shit. They had an election. I went out to the election meetings, a couple of them. They are so phony. The incumbents have their team out there of people that they pay salaries to, and saying, you get out there and you promote me or you'll lose your job. And that's what they do. They come out with all these prepared questions, and it's just a false pile of shit. So you never hear the truth out of these people. So anyway, that was what happened with the Toronto Community Housing. I'm still waiting to see what they are going to do. I still haven't found out. My MPP has now cut me off, apparently. Doesn't bother with me anymore. And I just don't have anywhere to turn. And as I said, the lack of viewers to this program is overwhelming. So I'm wasting my time trying to do something for this country and something for this city that nobody else seems to want. I want to make it better, and you people seem to prefer to like it the way it is, crappy. So I'm at the stage now where I don't want to waste any more of my life away trying to make things better for a country that has nothing, that's going nowhere, that's full of a bunch of nobodies going nowhere. So, and where have we got to go? Where does anybody have to go in Canada? In the States, you can follow your dream, but in Canada, you're lucky to get a fucking job, let alone follow your dreams. So we don't really have a lot to offer to anybody in this country, and it's getting worse and worse and worse every year. I grew up in this country. I'm 75 years old, and I remember this country when it was lovable, when you woke up in the morning with a smile on your face and happy to be in this wonderful country. And now, I despise it. I wish I was anywhere else but in this country because of the way I've been treated in this city, this despicable, disgusting, disgraceful city of Toronto that's run by a bunch of hoodlums and scumbags. So, you know, I tried and tried to get help. I reached out. I offered the jobs to young people who wanted to learn a career in broadcasting to come forward and to help me, and I would help them. Not a word, nothing. So I think that my exercise has been futile. I have wasted a lot of my time and yours on nothing. And it disappoints me, and I just don't think that I can do much more of this. Hugh and I are talking about maybe doing a DJ show, but we'll let you know. But in the meantime, I think I've covered all my problems now. I think you can tell what kind of a city we're living in, and don't expect any help from politicians, because they, as J. Edgar Hoover discovered when he took over the FBI in the States many years ago, that most politicians are corrupt and dirty, and that's why he made it a point to get dirt on all of them. And if they ever tried to do anything to him, he could say, hey, don't screw with me because I got this dirt on you. And that's what I believe the police have done here in Toronto. They have dirt on all of the politicians, which wouldn't be hard to do, and they're controlling the government. And it's disgusting and it's disgraceful and it turns my stomach that we have this bunch of scumbags having such control over a city anywhere, but we are stuck with here in Toronto. And I think that I'm going to say to you all, unless we can come up with some sort of a plan for for a future program, this will be my last one, and I will bid you adieu. And I hope that maybe somewhere there's somebody out there in this God-forsaken land that will have the courage and guts to stand up and fight for your rights and freedoms and take away this power that you're giving to a bunch of scumbags who are pissing and shitting over the graves of our brave hero soldiers buried all over the fucking world, okay? And I don't like to see that. I'm pissed off about it. And I hope that you will get pissed off about it too and do something to bring these fucking cops under control. Okay? So I leave it up to you now, folks. Maybe we'll leave you with some music and wish you luck as we wave you goodbye. It's been a wonderful experience working on this program with Hugh Riley, working for Your Ward News, and thanks to James Sears for giving me the opportunity to do this. And I really appreciate all the help I've received. But as you can tell, it's not going anywhere. So I bid you all a very fond farewell, and wish you all the best of luck, and I hope that Canada gets better. Okay? God bless. Bye-bye now.
Somewhere the music's playing soft and low, and another holds the one that I love so. I was blind, I could not see that you meant so much to me. But like a fool I stood and watched you go. Now I'm crying my heart out over you. Those blue eyes, now they smile at someone new. Ever since you went away, I die a little more each day, 'cause I'm crying my heart out over you. Each night I climb the stairs up to my room. It seems I hear you whisper in the gloom. I miss your picture on the wall and your footsteps in the hall, while I'm crying my heart out over you. Now I'm crying my heart out over you. Those blue eyes now